Hi everyone. How's your week? How's your day going? Today we're gonna be talking about screen time with no screen shame because I'm pretty sure most of us are using that as a tool nowadays. And I'm not here to make you feel bad. In fact, I'm here to let you know that you are not the only one using screens a bit more maybe than you would like. So if this is the first time that you're watching, my name is Denise. I am a parenting coach based in Madrid, and I have a 4-year-old, it was just her birthday last week, a 4-year-old and a 20-month-old. And I've been going live every day ever since they announced that they would be closing schools in Madrid. So that's been, someone said, I thought it was 5 weeks. Someone said earlier it was 6. I don't know, it's been a long time, guys. We've been in this house for a long time. So yes, I've been going live just to share my experience and as well share some tips to help other parents that are going through the same thing that I am. So, screen time. For everyone who's watching, I'd like you to tell me in the comments how many hours of screen time is your kid getting now? Or if you don't want to tell me the real number, how many hours of screen time would you be okay with your kid getting now? So the answer for that, for me, is 3. Yesterday, my sister asked me how many hours, and I said, at least 2. And so now I'm going to tell the real answer, and it's 3, and probably at least 3. But anyway, so the first thing that I wanted to share was to kind of like give you the okay, right? Give you the space that you need maybe to let go of the guilt that you might be experiencing because you have been using screens as a babysitter. We're going through tough times. We're home. We're stuck in home 24/7. We're expected to work and parent at the same time. And you know what? It's not easy. It's not easy. And if screens and using screens is a way for things a way to make things easier, then you know what? Use it. Use it. Because in the end, what do you think is more important? That you are able to get that 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, 30 minutes of peace and quiet where you're actually able to focus on work, or you don't let them watch TV but then you spend the whole day trying to get a million things done. Okay, so really it's okay if you're using screens right now. I think even the American Association of Pediatrics has just announced their new screen time guidelines for this period, and basically what they say is don't watch it every day. Don't spend the whole day watching it. So yeah, so it's okay. It's okay. Meanwhile, however, I also have some tips for everyone who's using screens as a way to still maintain some boundaries over it, right? So I think it's one thing to use screens and accept that you're using screens and still maintain some control over it. And it's another thing to just kind of give into it and use it as a last resort, right? So here are some, and then every time they ask you, you just give in, and then you just feel like you don't have control. So here are some ideas, some tips to help you maintain that sense of control, even though they might be spending more time than you would like in front of the iPad, the TV, the phone, whatever. So the first one is to build it into the routine, the flow, just build it into your day so that they know when they're going to get that screen time. So in our case, for example, she normally gets screen time after lunch. So she knows that at around 3 p.m. is her Paw Patrol time. And we've also started watching Amy Jo's music class, which is every day at noon. So those are kind of her screen times. And then she also has a bit of yoga before dinner. So those are when she gets them. And so when she asks for them throughout the day, actually she doesn't even ask for it anymore throughout the day because she knows exactly when she'll be getting it. And then another tip to build into your routines, aside from like making it clear when you'll be using the screens or when they will be using the screens, is also adding some connection time when the screen time is about to end, right? So it's not, and also giving them a warning that it's about to end. So it's not just about going in and then suddenly like turning off the TV. It's more about like, okay, going in and seeing, okay, this is like the last show. And then maybe you catch the last 2-3 minutes of the show where you're really sitting down beside them. And then when you turn off the TV, you're able to look at them and kind of have a conversation or just connect with them about what they had just seen. Right? This really helps the kids in making the transition from screen time to non-screen time. And another thing that helps, especially if you've noticed that you have one of those kids who gets really like overstimulated or agitated when they've been watching TV for a while, you know, those types of kids who after you turn off the TV, they start shouting and like rolling on the floor. So another thing that you can do that will really help that transition is to add movement after the screen time, right? So it could be simply that you play with them like rough and tumble play, like maybe you run around the house chasing them, or you do like a certain type of exercise with them after the screen time just to help that transition. Because what happens is that when they're watching something, they're kind of like absorbing all of these stimulations. And when the screen goes away, that's when they release everything that they've absorbed. So they can release it either through shouting and just crying and being angry, or you can help them release it through movement. So that's one way. The next was, so build it into the routine. Within the routine, add connection time and movement. Next is focus on what they're watching, right? So if you no longer can really control how much they're watching, what you can do is control what they're watching, right? It's one thing to be watching just like random videos on YouTube, while it's another thing maybe to be watching, I don't know, Sesame Street, or okay, I'm gonna be honest, my kid watches Paw Patrol. She loves it. It's not a battle I'm willing to fight. But, you know, that's the thing. It's like, at least be aware of what they're watching, and if it's something that you don't agree with them watching, then find something else for them to watch. And just remember that you can also learn lots of things from watching TV, right? So it doesn't have to be a bad thing that they're spending all this time sitting down watching TV. And also, maybe they're not watching TV, maybe they are spending this time with their classmates, or they're learning something. So it's like, it's hard to generalize screen time because in the end, not all screen time is bad, right? But also just be aware of what they're getting from the screen time. And so the last tip that I have is, if they are using screens or the iPhone or the phone or the tablet or whatever to communicate, make sure you know who they're communicating with. This is especially important if you have kids who are older, and especially if they're able to like write messages and you might not know who they are writing messages to. So just make sure that you are aware, maybe ideally like beside them, or if not, just able to monitor who they're talking to. Because I think that we all would like to know that they're talking to people that they actually know, and they're not talking to random people on the internet. So those are the tips that I have, especially when it comes to screen time. So basically it's not a tip, but a general let go of the guilt. It's okay if they're watching more TV, if they're using the tablet, if they're using your phones. It's okay if they're using them a lot more than you would like. That's okay. And the actual practical tips are, the first one is build these times that they are using all these devices into the routine. And then within the routine, add some connection time and movement. And then focus on what they're watching. So it's like mindless YouTube videos versus yoga, or I don't know if any of you watch, I think it's PE with Joe or the body coach. My daughter did not like that, but lots of other kids do. And if they're using it to communicate, know who they're interacting with. One last thing I want to add for this is also know your child, right? And observe your child when they are watching the screens, when they're using the tablet, and just know, because in the end, screens and how they're using the screens and what they're seeing on the screens affects everyone differently. So if you notice that maybe your child is a bit more sensitive to screens, then maybe that's something that you should take note of, right? Maybe then you do need to lessen the screen time or just be more aware of what they're watching, right? As opposed to another child who just doesn't seem to be bothered by the screens, who doesn't really show any big emotion when you turn off the TV. Right? So it's, in the end, you know your child or your children best, and so just observe them, and you get to decide what do you think is working for your family and what isn't. And remember also that one thing that works for one child might not work for another child. And it's okay if each child kind of has different rules around what they can and cannot do regarding to screens. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't have to be the same rule for everyone. What's important though is that you explain it to the child, and not in a way that's punitive, right? And just kind of like explain them that things are like this because that's what works best for each of you individually. So yeah, so those are the tips for today. I hope you're having a very wonderful week. I know it's hard to stay kind of like positive with everything that's going on. We don't know how long we've been here. I've been talking to other moms today on my weekly calls, and I think we are all just sharing that emotion of being a bit fed up by this situation. I'm sure we're not alone. And so if you're feeling the same way, if you're like, okay, I got that first month down, how many more months left? And you just feel like you just can't take anymore. Yeah, I feel you. But that's what we got today. That's what we got the next 2-3 weeks. That's what we got. So hang in there. If you're going through anything, if you need some help, feel free to reach out. Okay? If you want me to address anything in specific during these lives, also send me a message and I'll do my best to help all of you in any way that I can. Bye.